Upon rewatching the Santa Claus trilogy, it's time to decide which ones are naughty and which ones are nice. Hello and welcome Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below, how would you rank the Santa Claus movies from your least favorite to your favorite? Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. And getting in last place, we have Santa Claus 3. Now this one has certain elements that can be lighthearted, can be fun to the nature of the comedy that's really building upon it. Tim Allen is still great as always as the Santa Claus, and we get Martin Short being the comedy genius he is in this great role as Jack Frost. While we get out of that, can bring about interesting shenanigans, and then we get Alan Arkin as well as this other one that's just really good to the nature of what you're bringing this cast together to pull together something really nice, really whimsical to the nature of the Christmas spirit, but also having Jack Frost be the villain to the nature of the story can make sense, but also feels like a desperate measure to make a third sequel. And so how that all pulls together just does not always pull off the right ingredients, can pull off awkward and annoying circumstances for the way things come about. Yes, this franchise is full of plot holes to the questions that you come about with the nature of how things work, certain things that come about that just don't always make sense. This one is a little bit too distasteful in my favor, despite having three great comedy stars, Alan Arkin, Tim Allen, and Martin Short. Their chemistry together just does not always fit authentically with the script that's given, too many puns, or too many other things that are going upon the Santa's workshop that just don't feel as jolly as the season ought to have be pulling upon us in this Christmas season. And so just the way they go about all the chemistry, certain things that are going about within Santa's workshop, bringing Carol's parents to the Christmas workshop and having to hide that secret just pulls about so many different problems that doesn't really progress in a certain story mode that works effectively with the nature of its humor, things that just don't feel as tasteful to the nature of what you may love about a Christmas classic. Now there are certain lighthearted moments that can redeem a rewatch upon certain elements to what this film brings about, but it still is one that I just don't go to quite as often. And at number 2, we have Santa Claus 2. Of course, this still goes about adding the extra element, bringing in this last minute clause where he has to find a wife, to which already that plot to begin with doesn't make sense. The elves are hiding it from the beginning, and it's a question of how he didn't need a wife to begin with his first Christmas, or wherever this Christmas takes place. Was it a year after? Was it multiple years after? It's hard to really place what makes sense for the nature of this story. Things that are going about with the comedy that is working toward this. Of course, it still has certain fart jokes, other things that just don't work effectively to the nature of what this plot is bringing to the enlightenment of the Christmas spirit. There still is, of course, like the third, certain things that work effectively, comedy that delivers on what it's needing to be, but at the same time, there's some weird and quick circumstances, contrivances that push the story forward to where he's actually able to get a girl within 28 days and still be back on Christmas. It pulled off in the last second, a Mission Impossible mission that, of course, you know it's going to turn out well, but it still just leaves you on a note where it doesn't feel like it's driving too hard of a stakes. The power he gains and is able to use back on Earth, it is still something that just drains really quickly, and then they end up in a circumstance where he realizes he has to utilize a reindeer, and then certain other reindeer that aren't qualified just so happen to be able to deliver on the right circumstance at the right time. So there's just a lot of deus ex machina type of circumstances that drive the story about the way. And there's certain things where the chemistry doesn't always hit as heavily because the nature of what you're building the story around, things that are driving the force of the story just based on who Santa is, how that is all pulling off certain things, and not to mention the clone Santa just does not look great. What they're doing for this plastic Santa, I get the gimmick and it kind of worked upon the first watch, but upon each rewatch there are certain things that just do not find it to be as funny, and so just the gimmicks and tricks that comes about along the way don't end up being as magical, even if as the second place to this franchise, it's one that I may still pull on and watch it time and time again, only to find out certain things aren't as lovely as I once remembered it to be. Which takes me into number 1, the Santa Claus. Of course, now this, of course, if you've seen even anyone talking about all the plot holes, contrivances, and they even make fun of it in the Santa Claus Disney Plus series, certain things that come about that just don't always make sense. Why they're questioning why the elves don't wonder about what happened to the last Santa, how the whole Claus thing even works to begin with, but that just still delivers on what the comedy to this film delivers on, making all of those problems to the script a little less problematic to my enjoyment of the film. Certain things that come about, the element of thematic ideas that believing is seen and not seen is believing, and so just how they circumstate what that means to a young child, the imagination, and bringing that onto an adult, even if it isn't specifically meant to represent that theme in the belief in Santa Claus in real life, that's still what comes about, brings some lively atmosphere, nature to what the elements of this film are really circumstating. We get Tim Allen, and Neil is such a weird character that still somehow works because he's so unique in the nature of what his personality is just sweaters. There are certain weird moments with the comedy here and there, but ultimately certain things, and especially Tim Allen, making him one of the best Santa Claus adaptations, what you're getting out of his personality, his character, his impersonation, and just the children lining up to see him, or certain things where when he grows fat, grows his beard quickly, you see a realistic adaptation and reaction to the look of what someone might react in real life to grow that quickly. Now there's the problems where no one is able to see him have that reaction, and he isn't trying to persuade someone that he isn't so crazy. Just a general reaction that we get from the whole film throughout different circumstances, certain things that go about in different ways, just still creates that lovely atmosphere that may not make it a great, well-written film that it handles all the gimmicks and problems that come about with the plot holes, but that's something that you come to expect with all these different Santa films throughout history. There's not necessarily anything you can perfectly do to resolve in the case where parents don't believe in Santa anymore. So taking that all into account, this manages to hold all the tricks and presents and presents them all in a nice, organized fashion that's just a rewatchable film each and every time. So that's just my ranking of the Santa Claus trilogy from my least favorite to my favorite. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the trilogy as a whole. Is it good? Is it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we talk about a love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.